Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Poland Daily History. Today we are at the city of Lublin. We will meet with Mr. Martin Delbout, a Dutchman that moved to Lublin, fell in love with the city, and now worked as a tour guide showing the world Lublin's most crown jewels. We are standing here inside the Lublin Castle Museum, and I was wondering, before it became a museum, what purpose did the castle serve?
Oh, that is a very good question, because the history of this place dates back for ages and ages. You know, in the 1200s, you had here a castle with the keep. The keep is built around that time.
Right.
But this place has not always been a museum, and actually we are not standing in the castle.
Right.
Everybody is used to calling it a castle.
Yeah.
In Polish, the zamek, you know, everybody,
Castle, yeah.
It's a castle, but it isn't. We are actually standing in a prison.
Or
a former prison, yes.
Right.
The castle became in decline during the ages. The condition became poorer and poorer. Everything was literally affected. So the Holy Trinity Chapel was in a poor condition, the structure of the castle itself. And they actually decided to destroy the castle. It were the Russians.
Right.
Between 1823 and 1826, they simply knocked down the castle. They only kept Don John the Keep and the Holy Trinity Chapel, and the whole other structure was simply knocked down.
Right.
And they created by purpose a prison. And actually, now we have a beautiful painting behind us. On the painting you see a view of Lublin, a panorama, and you can see the castle on it, and also the castle already in its current state.
Right.
The thing about the prison is that it was actually a very sad place.
Of course.
Because it was heavily used by the Nazis during the Second World War. We have here in town Majdanek, the Nazi concentration camp, the former Nazi concentration camp. Mainly Jewish people were held there and were murdered there, and the Nazis used this place for the resistance fighters.
Right.
So literally people were imprisoned here, they were tortured here, all that kind of stuff, and many people were killed here. It had a tremendously high killing rate. To give you a horrible example, on the last day before the liberation in '44, they shot 300 people here in the workshops at the time in the prison. Literally cold-blooded, they came in with their machine guns, and the people were mown down. What I personally don't like the most about the prison is that it kept a prison between '44, the liberation, and '54. And it was in use by the secret communistic police. And 333 people lost here their life because they had anti-communistic views. So that makes it even more sad up to me that the killing didn't stop.
Right, right. Like the mere disagreement in political ideology might end up with imprisonment and death.
Yeah, there was no freedom of speech at the time. And then something changed. In 1954, they wanted to celebrate the 10th University of the People's Republic of Poland. Because they had a very good reason to pick Lublin, a significant reason, because Lublin became the capital of Poland just after the liberation. So that, now we switch to something positive. We were it for a short time, but anyway, we have been twice in our history the capital of Poland, after the First World War and after the Second one. And the people's the political party, let's say it in this way, wanted to celebrate their anniversary, so they decided to built a museum here in the castle, but also they beautifully restored our historical center. Because we have a Renaissance center here in Lublin, the old town. And after the Second World War, many buildings were simply damaged by the war. Nothing was done with it. And they decided, okay, let's restore it. And in this way, you know, you can literally see the beauty of Lublin in the old town as it was in the past.
The Lublin Castle was turned into a prison by the Russian Empire in 1831 and retained this function until 1954. In the years following the end of the Second World War, around 30,000 Polish opponents to the Soviet Union's occupation of Poland were imprisoned here at one point or another. Next up, we will talk to Mr. Dalebout about the role Lublin played in the Polish anti-communist movement.
So you were just telling me that this structure served as a prison for the Russian empires, later on the Nazis, and again the Soviet Union. But I also know that Lublin has a significant place in the anti-communist movement, and I was wondering if you can tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, no, definitely spot on. Yeah, a world-famous person, John Paul II. He was teaching here in Lublin at the Catholic University.
Right.
And this was literally the only university in Poland which was independent. So in other cities, for example, take the capital Warsaw,
Right.
if you went to university, they were teaching Marxism, the doctrine of Marxism. Here, this was not the case. It was literally independent, and I could speak freely. And of course, John Paul II had an extremely strong voice against communism in Poland, and actually behind the curtain. What he was doing out of the Vatican was literally broadcasting the message of hope, the message of that we could get change in this country. That was he providing. And he has been here in Lublin. For example, at the Archcathedral, a beautiful monument remembering his visit to Lublin. And he was mentioning Lublin on multiple occasions. For example, if you go to the Archcathedral, we have there the painting of the crying Madonna, and it is part of the Maria cult. And it was also stated by the Pope that it is part of the Maria cult. So definitely Lublin had a warm place in the heart of the Pope. A spot for Lublin was reserved in his heart.
I do notice that there's a lot of church influence around Lublin, and I saw a lot of churches on my way here built in the Renaissance style. Not just churches, but the structure in a whole. And can you tell me a little bit about the influence?
Yeah, it is all related to pancakes. We had a great fire here in 1575. That was the first great fire. And it has all to do with Jadwiga.
Okay.
Jadwiga was a simple lady living here in town, and she was greedy. And Jadwiga decided that during a trade fair that she wanted to sell off pancakes, and in her humble opinion, she had the best recipe in town.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Mix that with the greediness of her, she started to bake piles of pancakes, the more the better, and she couldn't stop. So during the night, she kept on frying pancakes. And fatigue kicked in, of course. She fell asleep, and her fire where she was baking on sprung out of control, and literally whole Lublin burned down. So the beautiful buildings you see here in town, like the Crossgate, the Dominican monastery, the buildings on the market on the Rienek, they were all touched by this fire. Literally no building was untouched. And this was actually a blessing for Lublin. So actually we need to erect a monument for Jadwiga, because as a phoenix, Lublin rised out of its ashes, and it was rebuilt in this beautiful Renaissance style. And then a quirky thing, if you dig into the archives and you want to figure out, from who was now that architect and who was building this, maybe a bit boring, but some people love to do it, you will come across many Italian names. Italian names, because the main architects were Italians. And that is so cool, Nowadays, Polish people go often abroad to work, but at that time we were so rich that people from abroad came to Poland to work. And they sticked in Lublin and they sticked in Poland. They really loved the Polish ladies. They married, and this is why we have so many Italian architects and Italian names in Lublin.
As we can see, Lublin is one of the oldest cities filled with historical monuments, but the beating heart of the city, the Lublin Castle, is right behind me. The castle was a prison for over a century when Poland was under occupation, but today it serves a positive purpose of being the city's main museum. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee. I'll see you next time on Poland Daily History.